It's an award that speaks to our highest aspirations, that for all the cruelty and hardship of our world, we are not mere prisoners of fate.
It's one of the highest awards achievable on Earth, so the following people really are the best of the best. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Nobel Prize winners. For this list, we've looked at all winners of the Nobel Prize, regardless of the category in which they won. Number 10, Werner Heisenberg.
If you want to reduce the position uncertainty by making a smaller wave packet, you need to add more waves, which means a bigger momentum uncertainty. If you want to know the momentum better, you need a bigger wave packet, which means a bigger position uncertainty.
Werner Heisenberg was first nominated for the Nobel Prize in 1928 by Albert Einstein. Eventually awarded the 1932 prize for physics, he didn't actually receive his medal until the following year.
If a wave passes through a slit, it bends at the corners and radiates out in all directions, and that explains the spreading of the beam.
Recognized for the creation of quantum mechanics, Heisenberg revolutionized scientific thought regarding atomic behavior, presenting it all via abstract mathematical structures called matrices. In 1927, he also identified the uncertainty principle, a fundamental law of quantum mechanics referring to the impossibility of exact simultaneous knowledge of the momentum of a particle and its position.
But that goes to the very nature of light. Is it made of waves or particles?
Number 9. The International Committee of the Red Cross.
By having these improved facilities, then all the market activities are being centralized here, and it's now being well managed, well coordinated, and less crowded than what we had before the tsunami happened.
A unique organization within Nobel Prize history, the ICRC is the only 3-time recipient of the award.
Won't you join the American Red Cross and become one of these merciful workers?
Winning the Peace Prize in 1917 and 1944 as recognition for its humanitarian efforts during the First and Second World Wars. It also shared the 1963 Peace Prize with the League of Red Cross Societies. Furthermore, the first ever Peace Prize, awarded in 1901, was given to Henri Dunant, the man who founded the Red Cross movement in the first place.
In 1864, an international diplomatic conference in Geneva was called. The result was the adoption of the First Geneva Convention for Neutral Humanitarian Aid and Protection for Wounded Soldiers.
Number 8. Hermann Joseph Muller. Awarded his prize for the discovery that mutations can be induced by X-rays, H.J. Muller's win was recognition for decades of work in the field. Given to him shortly after World War II and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, the prize brought public attention to Muller's ongoing campaign to highlight the dangers of radiation. As the world entered into a Cold War state, Muller became an increasingly prominent public voice, highlighting his growing concerns about atomic warfare. Number 7. Jean-Paul Sartre. One of only 2 Nobel Prize winners to voluntarily decline the award, Jean-Paul Sartre did so because, in his view, quote, a writer must refuse to allow himself to be transformed into an institution.
Puisque j'ai été désengagé, alors la société bourgeoise voulait bien ne pas tenir compte de mes erreurs passées. Elle voyait là un aveu et elle me donnait le prix Goncourt, le prix Nobel.
A controversial figure throughout his life, Sartre was, in truth, more than just a writer. He earned a worldwide reputation for political commentary, social opinion, and existentialist philosophy. He gave speeches and wrote essays on Cold War politics especially, and sought a higher understanding of life and how to live it best.
La liaison du peuple et des intellectuels qui existait au XIXe siècle, pas toujours, mais qui a donné de très bons résultats, devrait être retrouvée aujourd'hui.
Number 6. Francis Crick, James Watson, and Maurice Wilkins.
Wherever I go, people are always asking me, how did we find the structure of DNA?
The discoverers of the double helix structure of DNA, Watson, Crick, and Wilkins successfully answered biology's most complex riddle. The existence of DNA had long been accepted before the 1953 determination of its structure, but not until this trio of scientists was anybody able to understand exactly how it worked, or what it looked like. Rosalind Franklin's is a 4th name with strong links to the discovery, which is remembered by most as a joint effort and process. But these 3 were there when the code was finally cracked.
The talk was given by a young, 30-year-old, 35-year-old English physicist, Maurice Wilkins, who said it was crystalline. So that meant DNA had a three-dimensional structure.
Number 5. Alexander Fleming. The man who discovered penicillin, Alexander Fleming chanced upon his wonder drug largely by accident. In September 1928, Fleming returned from a vacation to used petri dishes that he'd absent-mindedly left out in his lab.
The mold, almost certainly, came from the laboratory below his, where a researcher was working with fungi. And that mold landed on the dish at the top of the stack and started to grow.
Unexpectedly, he found that a mold had killed the bacteria that had previously been in them. That mold came to be penicillin. It was another 12 years before Fleming's joint Nobel Prize winners, Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain, began mass-producing the drug. But Fleming's initial work was what made the subsequent advances in medicine possible.
That wasn't so bad. That was penicillin.
Number 4. Martin Luther King Jr.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
A tireless campaigner for racial equality, the Nobel Prize Institute estimates that Martin Luther King traveled over 6 million miles during his social political career, speaking more than 2,500 times.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Regarded as one of America's greatest ever orators, King was the youngest ever recipient of the Peace Prize at the time of his being awarded it in 1964.
Civilization and violence are antithetical concepts. Negroes of the United States, following the people of India, have demonstrated that nonviolence is not sterile passivity, but a powerful moral force which makes for social transformation.
It was given to him just over a year after his historic I Have a Dream speech, which he delivered to more than 250,000 supporters from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
Number 3. Marie Curie. Marie Curie was the first woman ever to win the Nobel Prize when she won for physics in 1903.
In a Victorian era, when opportunities for women and opportunities for women academically especially were extremely few and far between.
When she won the chemistry award 8 years later, she became the first person to win twice and remains the only woman with 2 awards. She's also the only person ever to win twice in multiple sciences. The 1903 award was given to her and 2 others, Pierre Curie and Henri Becquerel, in recognition of early research into radiation, while the 1911 award was hers for her work with the newly discovered elements polonium and especially radium. Number 2. Mother Teresa.
Before that, it was a vocation. From the time I was 12 years old. 12. That calling to belong to Jesus.
Though some view her as a controversial figure, Mother Teresa worked to improve the lives of the poor, sick, and needy across the world. Born in Macedonia with Albanian ancestry, she moved to Ireland to practice as a Roman Catholic sister.
Through this award, and through all of us gathered here together, we are wanting to proclaim the good news to the poor.
She then moved to Calcutta, India to teach English, where she experienced a calling telling her to devote her life to helping those in need. And she certainly did that. Mother Teresa set up the Missionaries of Charity in 1950, which gradually expanded into over 130 countries, establishing itself as one of the great humanitarian achievements of modern times. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979.
Holiness is not the luxury of the few. It is a simple duty for each one of us.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions.
Robert Koch and his assistants also learned to prepare and use nutrient materials.
His most important work was on the distribution of energy in radiation spectrums. Planck worked out the relationship between energy and the frequency of radiation.
If the two small nuclei together weigh less than the uranium nucleus they emerged from, then part of the mass must have been transformed into energy. So the mass of the nucleus itself is the source of energy.
During the McCarthy period, when many people, especially scientists who had been following approximately the same course that I was following, gave up, I continued because I had to retain the respect of my wife.
Number 1. Albert Einstein.
He was a complete outsider to the physics of his day, as he was, being in Switzerland, being a patent clerk, and yet he was ambitious enough to think that he could challenge the whole of the established physics at the time.
If ever a person could be considered an archetype for brainpower and intellectual thought, then it was Albert Einstein.
A country becomes really a soul only in consciously solving the intellectual life.
A man probably most famous for his theory of relativity. He actually won the Nobel Prize for another piece of work, his discovery of the law of the photoelectric effect, which made new sense of light, the energy that it carried, and how it behaved. Dramatist George Bernard Shaw once described Einstein's genius by calling him a maker of the universe. In terms of the Nobel Prize, he's the best that's ever been awarded it.
It had this cool quality to it. He could see in ways that no one else could. He put together elements of the universe that others had not imagined would fit together. The general theory of relativity is one of the greatest achievements of the human mind.
Do you agree with our list? Which laureate did we overlook? For more prize-winning top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the